Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
Welcome to this week of the Family Brand Podcast. I have Chris with me, and we have special guest Wayde Elliott, who we had the privilege of meeting in Croatia this summer. And I loved getting to know Wayde and his daughter when we were on a boat in Croatia. And I'm excited to talk to you today, Wayde, and learn from you.
Yeah, we talked about, I think, on a number of episodes previous to this. This is the second time we've gone to Croatia. Wayde, I think, has been multiple times. But I think what was unique about this, and we have been with the same company both times, Solimori, Anthony, who's amazing. I think Wayde has as well. But this one was different or unique in the fact that it was a cruise in the Adriatic through Croatia, but it was really kind of marketed as a family cruise. I am curious about that, Wayde. I know we talked about this a little bit. Was that appealing to you? Was that like for sure? Like, I know you love going on these cruises no matter what, and you've done many of them. Was that for you like I definitely want to go spend this time with my daughter?
Totally. I picked that week because of the family week. That's exactly why I did it. And my boys got to go a couple years prior, but it was a family trip, but it wasn't intentional, and there wasn't, exercises that you guys did. So I was so grateful to have you guys there and actually take us through some exercises and actually do the work. It was awesome. I got a lot out of it. It was very powerful.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was me. And as a result of that, obviously, so Wayde had a really unique perspective that I don't know if we've ever had anyone.
No, we've had people request, hey, can you share more content for families who are single or blended, single parent families? And I want to bring more content. So I'm so appreciative to have you. And you even offered when we were talking on the boat, like, hey, I would totally love to come and talk about this. And I was like, yes, please. So before we jump in, maybe just tell us a bit about you. And you mentioned your boys and you have a daughter, just about who's Wayde Elliott and a little snapshot of you and your family.
Yeah, so I was a dentist for 20 years, really successful dental practice. And I ended up losing the dental practice just because I had a spinal fusion surgery in my neck. And it took me out of dentistry. And at the same time, I was going through a divorce. So it was a very, very challenging time for me and lots of stress. And I think many could argue it would be a midlife crisis.
Wow, that's crazy that it happened at the same time. These like life-changing things are happening simultaneously.
Yeah, it was a lot of stress, and it required a lot of intention to not only replace the income, but be intentional with the family and the kids and making lemonade out of lemons, I guess.
So Wayde, you, as a result of this surgery, you even ended up changing careers completely.
I did. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Can you talk a little to that?
Yeah, so I had a patient while I was doing dentistry who was a very successful businessman, and he had a lot of freedom. And freedom is one of my core values. And hopefully we talk about core values today because they mean so much to me, not just business core values, but personal core values and family core values. He had lots of businesses, and I said, Larry, what is the best business you've ever been in? And he said self-storage. And that's kind of what got me interested in self-storage and lit a fire under me. And that was a light bulb moment, and did my first deal, had success. And then on my second deal, I made more money than I did doing dentistry for 20 years. So that was really a light bulb moment. Like, okay, this is a real thing.
I mean, we should do a whole nother episode about real estate, but I mean, I feel like it would be a tangent right now. So I want to ask you more questions. Maybe we'll schedule something else. But let's go back to, as you said, simultaneously, you're having some challenges at home. Let's take it that direction. Tell us a little bit more about that, what that was looking like at the time.
Yeah, so it was probably 12 or 13 years ago that I got divorced. And when we tried everything, counseling and all different modalities and trying to work it out, because it was very important to me to stay together, but it just wasn't healthy for the kids or for me or for my ex-wife now. And I wanted to be very intentional on the separation. So the first thing I did is I went to her and I said, what is it that you want? And one thing that I want to share that was so powerful to me on the boat that you guys shared with me, I've known this all along, that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions that you ask. And you said, both of you guys said, a great question to ask your kids is, what does success look like for the week? And how can I support you? So when I was going through the divorce with my ex, I asked her, not even having that tool in my tool belt yet, what is it that you want? Or what does success look like? Because I didn't want to get attorneys involved and I didn't want to have it be ugly, because I knew that she would get an attorney, I would get an attorney, we'd spend a whole bunch of money and we'd end up not liking each other at the end. And I wanted to have it be very amicable, very organic, very a win-win-win for the kids, for her, for me. And asking her that question, at the time, I didn't have a career, and what she was asking for was a bunch of money and all of my savings and the house that we built to get like a lot every month that, I had, my income went from 30,000 to zero overnight. So it was very scary and I was tempted to push back. But on the advice of a lot of my friends and people that I really respect and trust, they said, just do it and you'll make more money. And that proved to be true. And so I'm so grateful that I did it and preserved the relationship with my ex. We have a very good relationship. It's very amicable. Like if she calls me and wants something, I'll give it to her, even though it's not in the divorce decree that, the documents that we created. And I have more money, so I'm able to do a lot more for the kids now that wasn't in there. We were supposed to split all of the medical bills, but I pay for all the medical bills. I pay for everything basically. And I think that is important if you are going through a separation, to really be intentional with the questions that you ask and be open, and don't be have a fixed mindset like, no, it's got to be this way. But it can be scary. I mean, it's easier said than done for sure. I can look back now and go, well, of course that was the right decision. But at the time it felt very scary, having no income, with her wanting a whole bunch of money. But it literally was the best thing that I did.
What gave you the wisdom, I guess, Wade, or the foresight to like think about that? Because I'm assuming that's tough, right? When you're in that moment, you're it's natural to just think about you and self-preservation and what you want. What had you think beyond that and look out in the future and say, but I'm still going to be connected, right? We still have children together. Like, was that advice you got from someone? Did you see the opposite of that at one point and see how bad that was? And you're like, I don't want that. Like, what gave you that kind of wisdom or foresight?
That's exactly what happened. I saw some of my friends go through divorces and they would spend, $200,000-$300,000 on attorneys' bills, and then end up hating their ex and not having a good relationship. It wasn't organic. We had a every other weekend schedule, but it was very organic. Like if I had 2 weekends in a row, she was cool with it. Or if she had 2 weekends in a row, we were just open. And I wanted that. And I knew that if we had attorneys, it would be we would end up not liking each other. So I wanted to be very intentional with that, and seeing what can happen. I didn't want that to happen. So knowing what could happen, I think, was the biggest deterrent for me.
Were there have there been things you've done that have worked, mistakes you've made, like when you started, that you would share with other couples who are co-parenting or recently divorced, or they're going through that, or then figuring out how to navigate, co-parenting? And
as challenging as it would be, communication, right? Like, keep an open line of communication. I've talked to some people recently that are going through divorce and they only communicate via text. And if you can keep that open communication very early, and go have coffee or go have dinner, or, this is an interesting story. Well, I find it interesting. So when we were getting divorced, I took my ex-wife to a really bougie, fancy spa in wine country, and we stayed the night in a super fancy hotel. We were sitting at the chef's counter having dinner. A couple next to us, we're talking to them like, "What brings you here?" And they're like, "Oh, we just got married. We're on our honeymoon." And then they go, "What brings you here?" And I go, "We're signing our divorce documents." So like having that openness and willingness, and we stayed the night, and it was very platonic. I think that helped us preserve that relationship, and just having an open communication and not have a fixed mindset. And yeah, I think that just be open and not fixed.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What would you, I imagine, before we hit record, you kind of talked about what a journey it all is, from then until now. And I'm wondering what it was like when, you started, however you decided the kids were going to spend time in each of your homes. What was it like when you realized and maybe this wasn't the case, so you weren't seeing them as much, or they were in, maybe the things that you were teaching and enforcing in your home was different than what they were getting in her home. Like, how did you navigate those changes?
Yeah, that can be very, very frustrating because we look at life very different. My ex and I look at life, education, everything so differently. So my question to the kids wasn't, "Are you going to go to college?" It was, "Which college are you going to go to?" Where my ex didn't go to any college, which is fine, but she didn't prioritize. Like if the kids, didn't want to go to school, she didn't make them go to school, where that was important to me. Unless you have a fever, you're going to school. So we differed on that quite a bit. And as it got later, I guess it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, my daughter got bad grades, so I took her phone away. Well, my ex went and bought her another phone. So I think, there's always things that are going to come up, and it was hard for me to bite my tongue and like not go, "What are you doing? You're sending mixed messages." I'm trying to, parent how I think it's important. I'm paying for the phone, so you don't do the work, you're not going to get the phone. Where she almost rewards that behavior. So that can be a little bit challenging, but being open and not maybe communicating right after that happens. And I think another thing that I've learned is it's not the experience that really gets us riled up and shifts us into a suffering state or a state of a primal state. It's the meaning that we give the experience. So, when that first happened, I gave the meaning, she doesn't care about anything I do or, where I'm going. And then as I thought about it more, like, the meaning that she's giving it is, she needs a phone to communicate. And so be intentional with the meaning that you're giving the experience, whatever that experience is. I see people road rage all the time. Someone cuts them off, and I've let all of that go because the meaning that I give it is, maybe they're late and they're going to get fired, or maybe their family's in the hospital. Who knows what happens? So it's the meaning that you give the experience, not the experience itself that triggers you. And that's really helped me a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think even for Chris and I think it's sometimes hard to give each other the benefit of the doubt in some cases. I can only imagine that is magnified when, you're no longer married or living together. That becomes even harder.
Yeah, well, a mentor coach I had, he was he is really well known for this line that no one needs my criticism and judgment, and everyone needs my love and forgiveness.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's just like
good. That's
people,
gold right there.
People really don't benefit from our criticism and judgment. They really don't. But that's the easiest thing to do in that moment, right? It's like when something like that, especially, it's like, no, you've offended me. You've betrayed my trust. You've like thrown something in my face. It's like, people usually don't change behavior or respond to criticism and judgment, but it's the easiest thing for us to do. But it's like love and forgiveness. One thing that we were talking about before we hit record is that you had listened to a recent episode we did on the power of deciding and committing. And I think sometimes when people ask Melissa and I, okay, how did you guys go from the place you're at in your marriage to like, which was, on the verge of divorce and separation, to where we're at now? And Melissa has this really beautiful Instagram post that's actually probably one of her most viral posts, like the 9 things we did to fight for and save our marriage. But the first one is actually the most interesting. And I think it's the one that people, when we first tell it to them, they're kind of like, really? But it's the most powerful of all 9. And it's, we decided to. Like there was this conscious moment. And look, sometimes the conscious moment is you decide to get divorced because that's the courageous thing to do. But it's like, but one of the things you decided early on and you committed, again, going back to that episode, which I think was really important. And I think every couple has the opportunity to do this, whether you're deciding to get married, deciding to stay married, or you're deciding to get divorced, you still have the opportunity to decide and commit to something powerful after it. And it sounds like you consciously, whether you thought about it that way or not, maybe it's like in hindsight, you could see like, oh yeah, I intentionally and consciously decided that although we were getting divorced, I was going to do everything in my power though to create the best situation possible given the circumstances. And I was committed to that. Would you say that was
Totally.
accurate?
Yeah. And it wasn't just deciding to get divorced. It was deciding to make the best of it for the kids and for my ex-wife and for me and for everybody, making that decision and not just being interested. We talked about this, if you're interested, you only do it when it's easy and when it really benefits you. But when you're committed, you're going to do it, whether it's easy or not easy, and you're just going to do it. And that's an interesting distinction, interested or committed, and a very valuable one.
Yeah, that distinction, decision, and deciding is actually, I just always think about it. It's actually pretty easy to make a decision around anything, right? Like, I made the decision I'm going to start going to the gym. I made the decision that I'm going to work on my relationship with my so-and-so. But to decide and actually, what's that really lame dad joke or saying, the chicken is interested, but the pig is committed? It's like, it's like, oh yeah, I'll lay some eggs, but I'm not going to like, give up my life for a family's like well-being or something, for breakfast. But I do think that's important for you. That you recognize like, wow, I've seen what I don't want it to look like, right? So I'm deciding that, we're going to figure it out. We will figure out a way to make this work. We will figure out a way to make this as good as it can be. And I also think you kind of continue re-upping because it doesn't mean you just decided that and it was easy. It's like, there's probably times where it's like, you got to go back to that. Because there's probably been times where you or your ex-wife want to blow up on the other and you have to like redecide like, wait, hold on, there's something bigger than me here. This is about, and I read something recently that one of the greatest traits of leaders is they've gotten over themselves.
Ego is a killer. If you go into a divorce or you go into wanting to have a relationship with your children with ego, it's a killer. Like, ego is no bueno.
You said something a minute ago, really briefly, that I think would be worth pausing on. And it's something that Chris and I talked about recently too, which is, it sounds like in that situation, going back to the phone situation, that you created a little bit of space in between when you chose to like reach out to her and talk to her about that.
Yes.
Like a certain amount of time that you set aside, or how does that work for you?
I don't remember how long it was, but I knew that if I reached out right after I knew it happened, it would not be good for me or her, or it would just be bad. So I don't remember how much time, but I try to give it space. And the other thing that I'm super intentional about doing is, and I have affirmations that I say every morning about, I'm going to live my life 95% of the time in a beautiful state. So there's 2 states. There's a suffering state and a beautiful state. And what I know to be true is that you make better decisions from a beautiful state than you do a suffering state. You tend to react in a suffering state. In a beautiful state, you tend to respond. And if I'm reacting, I don't always think it through. So being intentional about living in a beautiful state has really helped. And these are all things that I've learned over, the last 15 years. And I have this thing where if I'm not a better version of myself the next year, shoot me. Like, I want to be the best version of myself every year and improve every year. And I think that's so important. Whatever it is, whether it's learning on your business, your personal, your family, or all of them together, super, super important. And that's one of my personal core values is learning. And I think that translates and helps with just having some tools to deal with some of these challenging situations. Because I deal with things today way differently than I did 15 years ago. I have way better tools. Not to say that I'm not ever in a suffering state. 95% of the time in a beautiful state is a heavy lift, but I'm intentional about it. And I would say more often than not, I'm in a beautiful state than a suffering state.
It's beautiful.
That is. I'd like to, you mentioned your personal core values. A lot of times Chris and I will talk about, on the podcast of having family values and the importance of that and how that can impact your family. And I love how your core values, we even talked about them on the boat, like they are part of you. They're not just something that, you wrote down one time. Tell us more about your personal core values and how they impact your daily decisions in your life.
Yeah, so we've always had business core values, right? And those are super important to make decisions, to hire, fire, where you're going to fall on the sword. But probably about a year ago, I really dug into personal core values. So my personal core values are love, learning, abundance, fitness, family, and contribution. And if things happening in my life don't tie into those core values, then I have to reevaluate. Like how is this not serving me, and how do I need to change? And it's really helped me kind of move forward. And I think it all starts with love, and then learning, like we talked about, being the best version of yourself year after year. And abundance can be abundance of money. It can be abundance of, time with the kids, abundance with, joy, whatever that is. And then I've dug into fitness a lot more lately over the last couple of years, and that's been amazing.
It's awesome. Do you feel like your core values, so it sounds like for you, they're also kind of like, I call them like an alignment filter. Like you look at those to filter like what aligns with me, what doesn't, or where am I out of alignment and need to get back into alignment with these values?
Yeah. And I think on the boat, when you guys took us through family core values and actually having a discussion with my daughter, it was very apparent where I was falling short. And, as an entrepreneur, I just solve problems. That's what I do. I solve problems. And Avery doesn't want problem solved. She wants me to listen. And I heard that loud and clear on the boat. And thanks to you guys just percolating that to the surface, we had a really meaningful conversation. I don't know if I shared this with you guys, but during one of the sessions, Avery left and I could tell her energy, something was wrong, and she didn't come back. And I went down into the cabin and she was bawling, crying, and just so sad. And I listened, like I wanted to just solve well, what's the problem? Let's solve it. And I listened, and I just listened to her for probably 20 minutes. I got goosebumps even talking about this. And she just talked about, all of the other families on the boat are doing all these amazing things. And I feel like I don't get enough with you. And while we're on a boat in Croatia, right, with just her and I'm like, I didn't say anything. I just listened. It was very apparent she wanted more time with just me outside of the boat in Croatia. And so I've really been intentional since we've been back from the trip in Croatia to pick time with just her. So it's not necessarily her brothers and her, it's just her or her friends. A lot of times we do her friends, or when I was dating, it would be my girlfriend that lived with me and Avery. And what she really wanted was just her. And so that percolated from that trip. And also, she also said, I don't want you to solve anything. I want you to listen. So that was another thing, another value that came, a family value that came out. So I'm so grateful to you guys for, percolating that up. I don't know that we would have had that meaningful conversation without that conversation that you guys teed up and sparked. I mean, it's super sad. Like, when you're a dad and you see your daughter bawling, like you want to fix it and make her better. And especially in Croatia, and it ended, she pulled out of it and, ended up having a good time, but it was very good for both of us. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah. Well, and I love that Melissa shares a quote a lot. I can't remember who it's by. Never forget a person to be loved is more important than a problem to be solved. But I'm like you. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a maximizer. I'm a fixer. And I heard a story one time of a dad who gave every one of his kids an envelope, and just a blank envelope, nothing in it or on it. And he just said, "Hey, if you ever want to come talk to me and you don't want me to have any answer or any solution or advice, you just want me to listen, just hand me this envelope." Because also he recognized that his kids probably wouldn't feel comfortable, might not feel comfortable saying that. You know, a lot of kids, it'd probably be hard for them to say, "Hey, I just want you to listen. I don't want you to solve."
Yeah.
So he's like, "You don't have to say anything. Just hand me this. And then at the end, I'll hand it back to you. And you can," but I do think most times what our family, especially, it's like, yeah, clients, yeah, they want us to solve problems for them. That's why they're paying us, or that's why business partners, like, but most, yeah, it's a good reminder that our kids, our significant others, they just want to be, someone to be present and listen.
Totally. I mean, yeah, even adults, it's hard for when I had a 5-year relationship with my girlfriend that lived with me, I would fall back into the solving problems, and she didn't have the courage to say, "No, I just want you to listen. Like, don't solve anything, just listen."
Yeah.
And so it's a good lesson. I love the envelope trick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was talking with a friend last night about this. I wonder if it's in some cases, like a masculine, feminine thing about like solving problems and just listening. Anyway, that's an aside because we were just talking about that together last night.
Interesting.
There's a few questions that I had kind of been thinking about, and this is one of them. Prior to us recording with you, how did you preserve your relationship with your kids as you were navigating the divorce and all these changing and different family dynamics?
Yeah, it was challenging at times. There was an interesting story where my ex was dating someone and he was staying there, and my daughter, and he was staying the night, and like they were pretty serious. My daughter took a picture of me, an 8x10 photo, and put it on his side of the bed.
Oh, wow.
So I think she was hoping that we would get back together. So it was more challenging for my daughter when she was young, because she was the youngest, and a lot harder. And I think just being present with them, like when I had them, I tried to be very intentional and present and not do work or do things that they wanted to do. And they lived in a very small town, or the mom still lives in the small town. And I moved to Portland, the bigger city. So I tried to expose them to different things that they didn't have in Scaploose. And I think, at the time it was challenging for them because it was all new and big. But now, my son lives in Portland. My other son's living with me right now for the summer, and they love Portland. They prefer it over going back. So just giving them different experiences and being present, really being present, and give them the attention. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
Okay.
it totally did. We are about at time, and I have loved being able to learn from you today. Do you have anything else?
No, this is amazing.
I would love to maybe just give you the floor to say, what we've kind of been talking about throughout the whole episode, but is there anything left unsaid that you would want to share with someone who's going through a divorce or kind of navigating divorce right now? Like what would be your advice if you would say fun?
I think, I forget which philosopher said it, but wounds from a friend can be trusted, but the enemy multiplies kisses. So if you're talking to people that have a fixed mindset and maybe don't have your best interest, or don't know the whole situation, or don't know the family, I don't know that I would trust them. I would go to people that you really trust and know that have your best interest at heart. Because if you talk to an attorney, they get paid by the hour. Their best interest is to create billable hours. And I feel like that's not always the best solution. From my experience watching several friends go through a divorce with attorneys, it just amplifies it. And if you can get to a place where you can have an open, honest conversation about what's fair and what each side really wants and what's most important, that's going to get you much, much further and preserve the relationship with not just your kids, but your X moving forward, because, whether you like it or not, you're committed to both for the rest of your life. And having a better relationship will just make it easier to be in a beautiful state and not put you in a suffering state. Because I feel like if you're having to communicate via text and you say mean things to each other all the time, that's just going to put you in a suffering state and make it difficult for everyone involved, the kids and you and your ex.
Well, Wayde, thank you, man. I think the way you've approached it, the way you have looked at it, continue to look at it, is really unique, and it's refreshing. And I think there's a ton that people can learn, whether they do it exactly that way, but just help for people to see like, oh, there's different ways you can approach this. There's different things that are possible, and a lot of it is how you decide to commit and what you decide to do and how you're going to be around it.
And the meaning that you give the experience, if you give the meaning to the experience of it's going to be bad and it's going to be bad for the kids and bad for my ex and bad for that's one meaning. But you could also give it a meaning like, well, the kids are going to be exposed to a better version of me, a better version of my ex, and possibly a better version of themselves by being exposed to different things. So what meaning you're giving the experience is important as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you. I love, one thing I'm going to take from this episode is like, how can I live more in the space of beautiful? And I love that, looking at my life in that way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Wayde.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so that is it for today's episode of the Family Brand Podcast.
But before you go, we have something fun for you.
Yeah, like if you've ever wondered, okay, so how's our family culture actually doing? We've got an incredible quiz for that.
Good news, it's quick, it's free, and when you're done with that quiz, we'll even email you this awesome PDF full of practical ways to strengthen your family culture right away.
So all you have to do is go to familybrand.com/quiz, take the quiz, grab the PDF.
We'll see you next time.